Hello, can you hear me now? There we go. Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, you're back.
Welcome. Welcome, everybody. This is Office Hours. If you've never been to Office Hours before, this is your opportunity to ask me questions about anything, whether it's about Remix or one of my courses or anything else. And I'm happy to do the best that I can to answer. I'm also happy to say, no, I will not answer that. But I will do my best to give honest answers to honest questions. And yeah, it is weekly Fridays at this time. I have a hard stop at 10:30, like 10:25 actually, because I have a meeting at 10:30 that I don't want to miss. Yes, this is live on my YouTube channel. It'll stay there forever. So you can reference it later. I updated this with a bunch of cancellations so that you know when I'm not going to be able to make it to office hours. Sometimes family things come up and whatnot. And that is it. So I give priority to people who are in the Zoom meeting, but if you don't want to join the Zoom meeting or whatever, or you want to ask your question during the week, then you can ask in, wrong window, in the Office Hours, the KCD Office Hours channel in the KCD Discord. There's a link to that in the description of this YouTube video. So that is that. I do believe we do have some questions in the queue. Yeah, let me see if I can find. Is there anybody in the Zoom call who has a question right now before I go to questions in the queue? Okay, cool. Then let me come over here and we will go back. It's actually been a little while since last office hours was actually held. I wonder actually if it was like pre-Christmas. This might be the first one in like a month. So sorry about that. Okay, so yep, we were talking about that. That looks familiar. Okay, and then sometimes people will comment in here, which is fine. It just means that I need to find things. Okay, yeah, so view, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but I'm answering this question now in the live stream. Oh, and I suppose, you know what I normally do is I post the live stream link in the Discord so people can reference it. So I'm going to do that really quick. Okay, cool. So this question, working on Epic React, having trouble with an undefined onClick in the extra credit for advanced React patterns, prop collection getters. I feel like I might be missing something obvious. Can you take a look? I think undefined is coming from line 33 switch and nothing is being logged. Not even the typo or the type of from 44. The get toggle props on line 36. I notice nothing is logged to the console. Okay. And actually, you know what? It looks like Stephen may have answered this. Yeah, but I'll take a look. I'm guessing Stephen's answer is correct, but let's just see. He said line 33. So he's got on toggler props. And this type of is not getting called. Yeah, I can't see anything immediately why that would be the case. So when you click on that, it should be passing the onClick. Yeah, that is confusing. I wonder, it would be easier if I had a way to run this, but it looks like it should work. Let's see what Steve said. You haven't passed it into the function. Well, so here we're passing that, passing an onClick in the function there. And then we're destructuring that value there. So that should work. Maybe I'm missing something. Oh, hold on a second. What is he? Is that what he's doing? Nope. No, I think Steve is wrong here. Yeah, so onClick, this function right here will not receive an onClick handler. Yeah, that will be the event. Yeah, this is incorrect. I'm actually not sure why this is why you are experiencing this, because that looks correct to me. So what I need from you is a runnable example to figure out why that's not working. Sorry, I can't give you any more help than that. See, like I said, it's not always super useful, but I do my best. Yeah, hopefully if you do see this, give me a runnable example of the challenge you were having there, because that does look correct to me. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be getting a log there. But I do see there's the undefined right there. I'm guessing, so like to be clear, if you click on the switch, you are going to get the undefined because you on the switch, you're not passing an on click. So if you're getting that undefined when clicking on the switch, that makes sense. That's correct because you didn't pass an on click, and so on click is going to be undefined. For this one though, if you're clicking on the button and you're getting undefined, that is surprising. That should not be happening. So yeah, just make sure that you're doing what you think you are. Okay, cool. So Shalini, I'm sorry, you can correct me. I don't mind. I'm sorry, I pronounce people's names wrong. Our current API is mostly React classes or app, not API. I was like, that doesn't make sense. As we transition to hooks, sometimes we end up creating classes. Oh, and Rupert, you responded to this one, so I might not need to say anything. Sometimes we end up creating classes. Sorry, go ahead.
I might be wrong though.
Okay.
Now that I'm reading this back, I'm not so confident.
Okay, we'll see here. We end up creating classes that are consumed by other parts of the code that are classes. Doesn't make sense to create intermediary function that does this transition. What's the best way to handle this hybrid? Yep. Actually, I feel like I remember having a conversation with this person at some point in Discord, like in a different channel. And I may have told them to ask in office hours. Yeah, no reason you should need classes at all. This is true, except for the fact that they have existing classes. Class components happily consume function components, and function components can happily consume. Yep, they work perfectly. Yeah, yes, wouldn't that need an intermediary class so we can comply to? Yeah, so like I think if I have class A and hook B, I cannot use hook B directly in the class. Yes, correct. Yeah, that's right. And it looks like the conversation ended there. Yeah, so the problem that they're having is not that we want to use a hook in a class. It's more that we have a hook that we need to use in a component that happens to be a class right now, and we don't have time to refactor that to a function component with hooks because that's not always trivial. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky. Normally, it's actually like fairly straightforward, but yeah, sometimes it can be tricky. Some classes are like 2,000 lines long, so that would just be a big pain. So yeah, I'm pretty sure we talked about this in a separate channel, but the solution to this is, as you said, Rupert, you can consume one with the other. You just can't use a hook within a class. And so what you do is you either use a hook in a component that can that renders the class component and passes the values as props, or you take the part of the component that needs the hook and put that in its own separate function component and use the hook inside of there. So yeah, it's one of those two things. Yeah, and that's the best you can do if you can't just rewrite the whole thing as the whole class component as a function component with hooks. Yeah, that's just the limits of hooks. There's no other way to do that. Good luck on your path to glory with hooks. And I'm gonna just, because this is pretty old, I'm gonna say just answered this in the stream, just so that these people know that I do come back and I do answer these questions after. Oh, and I just noticed that Steve talked about this too. Sorry, the conversation was not over. Pass the hook into the class. So yeah, so this is basically, so now you have this component that can do hooks. So yeah, that's the sort of thing that you're looking for. Or how to use a hook in React component, blah, blah, blah. I'll just look at this and give my feedback. I mean, if it works, then it works. Oh yeah, using hook as HOC. That is basically like building an abstraction for what I was describing, where you have a hook that consume or that renders the class component, passes things as props. So using a hook as a HOC is basically the same idea, just abstracted and really hard to type with TypeScript. But you do what you need to make things work. So yeah, and that's actually one of the cool things about hooks. I remember when hooks first came out. Oh yeah, and here's what I would actually prefer is the render prompt version. When hooks came out, I was like, wow, this is sweet. I can re-implement all of the same old patterns that I had in with class components with hooks. And so I'm just making things better. So what I would suggest, if you did want to abstract it, don't do the higher order component thing, do the render prop thing. It is way easier to type. And you have a lot more flexibility because you have some control during the render over what you have with a higher order component, which has to be static. So we've gone over this like 3 years ago. The battle was won. Render props were better for most use cases. They're like styled components and stuff like that. There are still some use cases HOCs make sense, but for most use cases, and probably the use case you're talking about, a render prop is better. Okay. Developing a framework, speeding up dev time. Here, let me just say answering this now so people can keep track of what we're doing. We need a framework because majority of games share the same functionality, like onboard page, blah, 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 blah. So suggestion on how is a framework supposed to be structured? What things should be considered when making a framework? Okay. Yeah, okay. So what you are looking for is you want to have, and you're building games and stuff. So you want to have a framework that you can use for all of the games. Here's what I would suggest. Don't build the framework first. That would be a very bad mistake because you would build, you have all these ideas of what you think your framework would need, but you don't really know until you have the code that would use those features. So an example, actually, I needed a framework for my React workshops. So we've got React hooks and fundamentals and performance and suspense and advanced React hooks. You get the idea. These are all exactly the same. So I was building the same thing over and over, and what I did to create this pseudo framework for my workshops was I literally copy pasted everything in every workshop. Every workshop had everything copy pasted, and then right before I decided, okay, I've solidified all my workshops. I know what they need and what they are, and what their special use cases are for my framework. Then I was able to take all of the common pieces and put it into what is now the React workshop app repo. And so all of that stuff is in here now, and I can just reuse all of that. And it was exactly what I needed because I had all of the pieces in mind. So what I would suggest, this may not seem attractive right now, but avoid hasty abstractions. Duplicate stuff like nobody's business. And then it's really not that hard to duplicate and then bring in an abstraction later. It's very hard to build an abstraction that doesn't work and then and try to make it work for all the things, all the use cases that you didn't foresee. And then what you're left with is just a really bad abstraction. So I know that it seems weird and it seems like it would be extra work and stuff, but trust me, you're way better off duplicating and then figuring out what makes sense from an abstraction perspective. And one of the reasons why you kind of feel like you need to abstract first is because you feel like it will save you a lot of time to not have to redo all the same work every single time. But again, you're not redoing the same work, you're copy pasting. So you're doing you're getting a lot of the benefits. You're just not able to like npm install or use like a yarn workspace thing or something. So like maybe it takes another 15 minutes to copy paste all of that stuff rather than just install it. And it is kind of frustrating to have to say, oh, I need to make this change. So now I got to go make sure I update it in all these different places, which is why dry is a thing. Like everybody says, don't repeat yourself, because then you fix it one place and you forgot you need to fix it over there too. But that's why this isn't the end game. This is how you develop an abstraction, is by duplicating yourself a lot of times, exploring what the use cases of what you're trying to create. And then once you've figured out those use cases, then you can make the abstraction. So it's not when you're done, or like you're not done with the copy paste version. That's just how you get to the abstraction. And just make sure everybody on the team understands that that is the ultimate goal. It's hard to do, but you're building a framework. That's not easy. So good luck. I think you'll be much better off. Hopefully, I'm guessing you probably already started. So hopefully this isn't too far off of what you have already started doing. But that's just something to consider. So good luck. Okay. Cool. Yeah, sounds like it could be a fun framework. All right. Parsa. Oh, by the way, I'll just pause really quick. Anybody in the Zoom have a question that they want to ask before I continue in Discord stuff? Because you get priority because you're here. So.
Hey, Kent. Yeah, I got a
What's
question.
up, Vante?
What's up? I got a question, but it's actually related to Discord that I just thought about. So I want to get more active into the Discord and kind of get more out of being around, other devs. Like, what channels do you think would be like the ones I should really be looking into? Because there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, totally. So you're talking about different Discord servers or channels within this server?
Oh, just within yours.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. So the ones because like it's basically impossible to keep up with all of them because there's just too much going on. I know Rupert tries, and so I try. Rupert's in the TypeScript one a lot, which I really appreciate. We all appreciate that, Rupert. Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, like one of the cool things is that you can focus on the areas where you want to improve in your own skill. And so if you want to get better at TypeScript, then TypeScript would be a great one to hang out in a lot. And when somebody posts their giant link to a TypeScript playground, you can go into that and like see if you can answer their question and stuff. And even if you can't, that'll just give you exposure to the types of problems that people are having. So the more exposure you have, the more experience you develop and stuff. So yeah, if you're into TypeScript, you want to learn more about it, then hang out there. If you're into React, then hang out there. Or testing, whatever. So like I would just hang out in the areas where you're most interested, just intrinsically, or where you want to develop your skills there. The remix one, I have mixed feelings about this remix one because people will ask questions in here and like there aren't a lot of people in my community that are like super into remix, and if they are, then those people are in the remix Discord. So I'm kind of thinking about like maybe removing this channel and just telling people to go over to the remix Discord because there are like more people there. But yeah, I mean, you could be one of the few people in the KCD Discord who like is answering questions about remix here. So I'd love to like have people talking about remix in here. It's just your messages don't get as many eyeballs as they do in the remix Discord. Yeah, anyway, yeah, like the career one is always a fun one. Like people have interesting career stuff, and then you can get outside of tech and do some of this life stuff too. So I think I would just recommend sticking with where you're most personally interested.
Yeah, cool. That makes sense. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sure thing. Cool. Anybody else? I saw Andrew was in the call earlier, but must have dropped off. But yeah, thank you for that. For a second, I thought that was a question, but cool. Anybody else in the Zoom call have a question before I go back to Discord? Okay, cool. Then I'll go back. And again, because this has been so long, I'm answering this one now. It also helps me keep track of where I'm at. Okay. Still have to ask you a question. I told you on the website for the podcast, but here comes another one. Thanks so much for helping out. Speaking of, I need to go to the Call Kent podcast again and start answering those. I've got like 4 questions on there that I need to go answer. Sorry. Holidays really threw me off, my friends. Okay. Building a component like the image attached. So we've got, yeah, this is variables, filters, bunch of like nested components and stuff. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, seems kind of complicated. It's basically a tree, plan on limited nesting to 3 or 4 levels. There are about 4 entity types, and I have to build a form component for each one of them. You can see in the first highest box, where fair and instance fair is the entity. Pretty much everything falls where is an entity. When the user changes the value of the dropdown, the form that follows will change according to its type. For example, flight duration is a number, so it will render a form that has a select menu to select relational operators and input to type a number to compare to. As another example, when a user selects, okay, I think I get basically the idea. The end goal is to combine the output of each of the forms into a single huge Boolean expression that can be evaluated. Oh, okay, got it. Okay, that makes sense. So what you're making a filter, and you're just saying you're basically for each entry in this list of things, you're trying to filter out to get to a filtered version of those things. So you're basically building a filter function, and your thing just allows you to create this big Boolean expression. Yep, that makes total sense. All right. So 3 questions. Here we go. Should I just keep a big state that represents the tree and then modify the entire state on each change using regular use state or a use reducer? Yeah, that's actually kind of tricky. So it depends on like how much of this form changes or needs to respond to changes. Oh, hey, there you are. Welcome to the Zoom call. Yeah, so it depends on like if I change any of these values, does anything else in this form care about that? And if not, then you can kind of keep things more co-located and isolated from one another. If so, then having like a giant object representing the whole thing might make more sense. I'm guessing you also like persist this somewhere in a database and you need to read it so that users can build it or like modify it in the future. So in that case, it also might make sense to just have it as one big object that represents the state of everything. The biggest thing you have to be careful of is when you have a giant state object that everything depends on, then everything will re-render when that state object changes. There are libraries to help you kind of optimize for this. But yeah, sometimes that can be a performance issue. If you have like a filter that has like 700 fields, then that starts getting really slow. So yeah, I probably wouldn't reach for a library to solve performance problems until you start feeling those performance problems, because I'm guessing you're not going to have like 100 fields of this. Like I'm guessing.
No, it'd probably be like double this at most.
Yeah. Okay. So you'd probably be fine from a performance perspective, especially since most of these are like drop downs and they're not like the user's not typing because what it really performance problems that people have found is when they've got like 60 fields that all have like some really complicated rendering going on and validation and stuff. And then they run all of that rendering and validation on every key press. That's when things really start to feel slow for users. So because you aren't going to have that many fields and you just have selects rather than users typing in, then you probably won't run into any performance issues, even on mobile. You'd probably be just fine. So yeah, I'm thinking that an object that represents or like being able to serialize and deserialize this form as just a single object makes the most sense here. And you could totally do that with a reducer. I think, yeah, that's probably how I would go about solving this particular problem. Okay, sweet. So since each of the form components will generate their own part of the formula, I'd imagine I will have a use effect, which depends on giant state. Basically, we can concatenate the formulas to generate the, yeah. So basically what you're saying is to get the final formula, you're thinking, let's have a use effect that when there's a change in the state, you regenerate that formula. Is that what you're, yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, each form by itself will generate that part of the formula, listening to its state. And then at the end, the use effect will listen to the entire object change, and it will generate the giant formula.
Yeah, I think you can actually make this a little simpler because that is derived state. And so what I would do is I would think about the structure of this object, this big object that represents the whole thing, and then make a function that can accept an object like that and generate the final Boolean expression out of that. And the I'm actually wondering what is the usefulness of generating that Boolean expression? Isn't the object what you want in either case, or?
No, not really, because at the end of the day, we're evaluating this Boolean expression using some sort of PHP evaluator. So
Got it.
this
So you
will
do need
actually
like a
run as
string.
pseudocode. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So I would just have a function that is able to take that object and serialize it to that PHP Boolean expression. So then you can just call it whenever you need to, whether that be like on every change or just when the user says save or whatever. Yeah, because that's just drive state. You don't need a side effect for that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kent.
Yeah. Okay. So let's take a look at this last one. This might be more algorithmic question, but I'm not sure how to approach editing the right value when something gets changed. I imagine I would clone the state, do run search the tree for the values associated with the form using some sort of ID and mutate that value and set the state in a mutated object. Okay, I'm not sure I understand this question. So you're saying when the user changes this from business to first class or something, you're not sure how to get that updated in the bigger object?
Yeah, what I was asking was, I have this big tree object of forms and their values, and in the state or in the reducer, do I like clone the state and do like run like a, I don't know, depth first search or something, and then find that value and change it and then save the entire state? Does that make sense?
Let me think about this. Because I had another idea that just occurred to me. That is kind of interesting. It's probably a bad idea. So I think that you're going to have this object, and that object is going to come into your component, like your controller component or whatever. And you're going to iterate, and that's going to have like arrays and stuff. You'll iterate over those arrays. Those will have types of like what type of fields you have. You're going to just iterate through all those. So then, yeah, when there's a change, you'll dispatch a change. I think that you will probably need to have an ID, or at least the index. That's probably enough, just the index. So the form will, each one of these components will need to know enough to send to this dispatch to say what their new value is and where they reside in the structure of the object. So then the reducer can look at that and determine which piece of state to update. One thing that you might consider looking into to make this a little easier is there's a library called Immer, and I feel like there was another library built on top of it that I cannot remember what it was called. But
Redux Toolkit.
Sorry, what was that, Peter?
Redux Toolkit.
React Toolkit? Is that what you said?
Redux.
Oh, Redux Toolkit. Yeah. I mean,
this might be the one case that it's actually useful to use Redux.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you could. That wasn't the one I was thinking of. It was like I can't remember what it was, but Immer is pretty cool because it allows you to mutate your state, but not actually end up mutating the state. So it just makes it so that you can modify the state object without having to worry about the dangers of mutation and the problems that you can have when you mutate state. So that would be one thing to look into. I wish that I could remember the other project. I never used it, but it basically made it easy to use Immer with reducers. I think it was like copy something.
Jotai?
No, it wasn't Jotai. Yeah, I haven't used any of these libraries to like in anything real, so I can't really tell you specifically. But this seems like the problem that you're going to have is in your reducer, you're going to have like this giant object, and you're going to like look for the thing that needs to change, and you're going to have to copy everything so that you're not mutating state. And that'll be like just a huge pain. And that's exactly the problem that this solves. So that's why I feel like I can recommend this. But I know that there was another project that was like built on top of this that like combined this with reducers nicely, but you probably don't even need it. You could probably just go with Immer and be fine. So
okay. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
good luck.
Can I ask one more question, or has it been going
Yeah,
on?
yeah, you're on
Okay.
the Zoom call, so you get priority.
All right, thanks. So I actually did implement this because it was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, sorry.
And what I ended up, oh, no, that's not what I meant. What I ended up doing was, instead of having a tree object, I just have a like array, just 1D array. And I just saved the parent. I gave them UUIDs as IDs, and I just saved the parent ID, parent IDs actually as array inside each one. And then at the very end, when I want to create that formula using those IDs, I create that tree and create the formula. What do you think of that?
That works. Yeah, you normalized it, like
Yeah.
a normalized database sort of thing. Yeah, yeah, that works fine. I can't think of any reason why what I suggested would be better than that. So if what you have is already working and you're happy with it, then I'd probably just stick with that. In fact, maybe it's easier because then you don't have to worry about it's not as complicated to update the values.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Good show, old chap. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Kent.
A better idea. Cool. Yeah, sure thing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Fern is asking or saying thanks in advance. Well, we'll see about that. Just kidding. Answering now. See, question regarding asserting that a component called Axios or any other API client mock service workers states that include failure scenarios that adding such assertions, however, is implementation details testing is highly discouraged. Personally, I find it beneficial to have assertions that Axios was called this many times, whatever, because I could have a bug in use effect, forgot to add a dependency, for instance, and this test could catch that. What is your take on that? So I think, let me double check what MSW is talking about here. Okay. Let's see. When testing, it may be tempting to write assertions. Why is there this huge gap? Am I seeing something? Oh, this is, that's weird. I'm guessing, what the devil? Something's messed up there. Carbon container, I'm guessing that's carbon, oh shoot, what is that? That's that code.
It's carbon.now.sh.
Carbon.now.sh, yeah. I'm guessing this is an embed and it broke. Whoops, that's too bad. So there's probably some code in there. Somebody tell, oh shoot. I'm mixing up his name with his Twitter handle and now I don't remember either. Artem. Somebody tell Artem that this is busted. Check that the test code has a dispatch request. Yeah, okay. So what he's saying is MSW already ensures that your code dispatched a request, that it had what was necessary for getting that request to your request handler. And so like if it ended up at a different handler, then your test will probably fail because that handler will not understand it or will respond incorrectly. One thing I do in my handlers is I assert a couple of things that I feel like are important, like the post body or certain headers or stuff like that. So my handler will make those assertions, and so everything will fail if those things are incorrect. Yeah, so you were saying, but what about if like I could make this request like 30 times by mistake and not catch that? That is a good point. One thing that some people will do is is they'll say like expect a certain number of assertions to happen during the lifetime of this test. I really don't like those because they're just really hard to keep up to date. And so like when it breaks, people just say, oh, well, I guess there are 4 assertions now, update the number. Like you're not really being mindful about that. So I wouldn't go with that approach. But what you could do is just have some sort of, I have a couple of options and just trying to think of which is the best. So one option would be to say, hey, like this should only happen once during this test. And so you could have some mechanism to say only use, let's see. I feel like maybe something like this could be built into MSW actually, but just say before each, you can like reset some sort of counter, and then during the test in your handler, you just increment that counter. And if it's called more than the number of times you expect it to be called, so more than once, then the handler can throw an error and say, hey, this was called more than once. And so then before each, you just reset that counter to 0 again. That could be a little bit complicated because normally MSW, I like to put my handlers like the happy path in like a separate file, so that it's like my entire app works, including backend. And so I'm not even thinking about the fact that my backend is mocked. And so adding that sort of logic to those handlers probably wouldn't make a lot of sense. But one thing you could do is if you wanted to test this specific thing in complete isolation, then you could have a special test that uses the, what is it called? Where is it? Server.use, where server setup server. Yeah, here it is. So this allows you to inline within a test, specify a special handler, and you can override the existing handler. And then in here, you can, so you'd set that up. You'd set up your local state here to say how many times it's allowed to be called. And then you would do your thing and then assert that your counter of how many times it was called is the number of times you expect it to be called, which probably just once. And then throw an error if it's called more than just the once. You could even turn this into a jest function if you wanted to, and assert that it was called X number of times. So that's another option. The problem with that is that it requires like a special test or an exclusive test for that, where you might just want it to be included as part of the rest of your test, just to say, hey, my API was only called X number of times. So that's why I'm kind of thinking it would be cool if you could say, hey, MSW, reset your counters on the handlers, and then have some mechanism to say, hey, for this URL, I want to assert that this URL was only called X number of times. That would be my favorite solution to this problem. And maybe it doesn't need to be built into MSW, but it kind of feels like having some introspection of the MSW handlers, some built-in functionality there would be useful. So anyway, those are a couple of ideas of some things you can do to work around the fact that that's not built in. I still would not mock your API thing, not entirely, but what you could do is you could spy on it so that it still like passes through and does the whole thing, but now you can assert that it was called a certain number of times. So like that's another option. So good question. Okay, generally speaking, how do you choose what to assert in a test? Yeah, especially for non-UI assertions such as fetching data, calling third party. You have a third party and you log a BI event. I'm guessing that's business intelligence event through the SDK. What would you test? What would you assert? Or would you test it at all? What would you assert that level SDK is called, that your wrapper around is called? Yeah, that's a great question. So at some point you have to trust that your dependencies work as designed, especially when it involves a third-party service and you don't actually want to call the third-party service during your tests because they charge or something, whatever. So that's where the boundary needs to go. Especially since we have MSW, the first thing that I typically try when I've got a third-party service is I say, what if like, what if I can find out what URL they're hitting and I can just use MSW to mock that out? If that is too hard, like I tried this with Firebase once, that was a disaster. They call so many APIs and they have like the weirdest contracts, so many weird headers and stuff. I actually got authentication mocked working, but I hated the code so bad I deleted it. I was like, no. And then I eventually just implemented my own authentication. So yeah, if I continued with that though, I would have mocked out Firebase directly, or maybe there's an existing mock for it or something. So anyway, that is yeah, that is a tricky question. It will depend on the SDK. So I try to mock out the using MSW, the API that they're hitting. If that is too complicated, then I'll mock out the module. If that is too complicated, then I'll build a wrapper and I'll mock my wrapper. So that's what I typically do. Okay, cool. Good luck. All right, we are back to the present. Hooray. Okay, Peter is still here. If it was up to you, what would you change or improve about Discord? Ooh. I know that there are a couple of things that I think about. For one thing, I would make it a lot easier to test Discord bots because we still are on Discord JS version 12 because I haven't had time to figure out how to get our testing working in version 13, which is a real pain. Part of me wants to just delete all the tests so I can upgrade. But of course, I don't want to take the time to do that either.
Yeah. So, I've seen people to like create different Discord server just for themselves. And
yeah.
the bot there.
Yeah, and you can actually clone an existing server, so I've thought about doing that. But then like your tests take forever to run. They might be a little flaky because Discord isn't always 100% reliable. Yeah, so I don't know. It's tricky, but I literally have no time to work on the Discord bot right now. So so that's one thing. I feel like there are a bunch of other things that I have thought like, man, it would be cool. Like one thing I'd love is if I could do this whole thing in Discord, so not have to use Zoom, just do like a Discord voice chat that I could stream to YouTube at the same time and have all of the cool features that Discord has in their voice chats and not have to use Zoom at all. The other thing is like even with Remix, we're all in on Discord, except when we do voice calls, we do Zoom because Discord isn't always super reliable on their voice calls. So that would be another thing that I would really like is more reliability.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so second question, life outside of Remix. Yeah, I'm pretty much 100% all in on Remix. That's all that people hear about me or from me about. So yeah, I've been snowboarding a couple times this season. I've taken each one of the kids out, just the two of us up on the mountain. And so that has been fun. We haven't had snow for like a week and a half, and we're not having snow in the next 10 days by the weather reports. So that is unfortunate. The last time I went, it had like kind of rained, and so it makes the snow really heavy. It was not fun. So that is unfortunate. Because that's like the only reason that's the only redeeming quality of the cold winter time is that I can go snowboarding. So like without that, it's just sadness now.
I'm sure you can find something.
Sorry, what?
I'm sure you can find something even if it's not snowing.
Yeah. My wife really likes it when it's cold. She says it makes it all cozy and you have to like bundle up, and she likes that, but I do not.
Okay.
Let's see, other things that are interesting going on in life right now. Yeah, I don't know. We just signed up my my youngest for preschool. So when he goes in September, then we'll have all of the kids in school for part of the day on some of the days, and that'll be weird. Yeah, so anyway, fun stuff. Yeah, we have a couple of family plans that hopefully won't get derailed by COVID. I'll tell everybody listening here right now that this does have to do with Remix, but I'm going to say it anyway. Remix Conf is a thing. We're going to announce it soon, and it's going to be great. So I hope that you all come out to Utah for Remix Conf in May. So keep your calendars open. End of May. It's going to be awesome. Look forward to that. We should announce that probably next week or something. Oh, sweet. this is pronounced bow. That's good to know. Okay, so let's see. Ben is asking, working with a friend and wanting to use Remix. By the way, like I mentioned earlier, I do have a hard stop at 10:25. So don't let me forget, because this is important. I've actually had to move this appointment around a couple of times, and I'd feel really bad to be late. So I will answer these questions as quickly as I can. Big concern is that Remix seems to be a monolith type of architecture rather than microservices. Can you speak to that? My understanding is that Remix can be what you want, but I'm not as knowledgeable. Yeah, okay, Ben. So yeah, I see how people could see Remix as a monolith sort of architecture, but you could totally make microservices with Remix. You would just like each individual, you would just make a bunch of Remix apps that serve like resource routes and stuff. So if you wanted to do that, like you could. I would step back from the like architectural terms and stuff and wonder, okay, why did we come up with this architecture? Because like we're not using architecture because it's the architecture. We're using it to solve a problem. And so what if we could have something that didn't have the problems that led us to microservices? That's what Remix is. So the problems that led you to microservices, you don't have those problems when you're using Remix with modern infrastructure. So like one of the big reasons we're using microservices is so that our deploys, we can have independent deploys, potentially like faster deploys. So Remix currently doesn't support independent deploys of like different parts of the app. Eventually, maybe we will, but right now that's not a thing. It is something we've talked about. So it's not like I'm just pulling this out of the back of my head or anything. This is just like something that we have thought about as a possibility. So yeah, that's one benefit that you will not get with Remix right now. You do have to deploy the whole thing. But if you're deploying it to serverless or Cloudflare workers or something, your deploys take like 10 seconds. It's nuts how fast these things can deploy. Because we're using ES Build, even your build runs. My 25,000 line code node app builds in less than half a second. It's nuts how fast this stuff builds. So the build is fast. My node app does not deploy fast, but if I were to rework it so it could work in a serverless environment, then it'll deploy in like 10 seconds. So the deploy aspect is not a problem as much anymore. And so, yeah, the other reason that people use microservices is just to be able to deploy independently, so that you have lots of different teams working on this one thing. I am actually questioning the efficacy of that. I don't feel like it's actually all that necessary when you can deploy fast. And you get a lot of benefits from the monolith type architecture. So beware of the buzzwords. Microservices have their use cases and solve their problems, but just wonder or ask yourself the question, do I have those problems when I'm using Remix? I would say largely you don't. Okay, so Joe, recently when writing tests, I've had to wrap components in a lot of providers. You normally, yeah, we do have a helper. If somebody could link to this person to the docs, the testing library docs, that would be super appreciated because I got to go fast. Okay, best way to test this. Yeah, do not do that. That's the way that we did it with Enzyme. Yeah, so this is implementation details that you want to avoid. So I think probably the best blog post to give to you here is imp deets. Yeah, so go read that. Don't test things like this. Avoid implementation details. You'll be a lot better off. Good luck. Oh, hey, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So that's cool. Okay. Pablo, really like this AHA programming. Okay, this is a comment, not a question. Thank you for the comment. I got to hurry. Sorry. Okay, Ravi, would Epic React be modified? Yeah, so I am not planning on updating Epic React ever in the future. That's possible to change. Like maybe Ryan and Michael make me really mad, and so I leave Remix. If that were to happen, that's not going to happen. But if it were to happen, then I probably would go back to Epic React and update that and all that. But I'm telling you folks, that's not going to happen. So don't plan on getting an update on Epic React. Now, the course material, most of it actually has been updated to what I would update everything to in the videos. It just, now I don't have time to do that. So if you go to the repos and look at the next branch, the branch called next, then you'll see all of my updates. In addition, I have a change log in the issues, so you can see what I changed. Most of them aren't like really significant changes. For the most part, it's all just TypeScript stuff, but there are a couple like new exercises and stuff you can go take a look at. As far as like React 18 and stuff, I am very skeptical that the big changes that they're planning on with React 18 will actually see the light of day. And if they do, I would be pleasantly surprised to see that they improve the user experience. Because right now the demos that they have do not. So Remix with React 17 is much better than the demos that React 18 has currently. Like very, very, very much better from both the user experience and the developer experience. So yeah, I'm not super concerned about falling out of date with React 18. The other thing is that most of what Epic React has will work just fine and still be best practice and everything when React 18 lands. So I may actually update the course material when React 18 lands, just to update the version of React, just to say, hey, look, we're using the latest version of React, and everything will still, most everything will be relevant. The only thing that won't be will be the React Suspense workshop, but that still has a lot of really great ideas and concepts in there that apply even outside of that version of Suspense, which is why if that were not the case, then I would just take it off and say, you're not, like, this isn't included anymore. But it teaches a lot of really useful concepts like render as you fetch and stuff like that. So, or fetch as you render or whatever. I can't ever remember how to say that. We need Remix, or what is it solving? Is it a competitor with Next? It is a competitor to Next. Look forward to a blog post comparing the two, maybe today, but maybe Monday. We'll see. Okay, I've really got to run. Yeah, I'll take a look at this next week, Peter. Thanks, everybody. This was fun. Appreciate you joining me for this fun time, and hope you all have a brilliant, awesome day, week, month, and year, and everything, life, I guess.